Thank you, Faisa. In December 2009, police in Henderson, Nevada, a suburb of Vegas, pulled over a van full of 8 American Muslims who were American citizens, based on a report that these guys had been observed praying in the parking lot of a gas station. During the 40-minute long detention by the roadside, one of the passengers in the van had the presence of mind to videotape on his iPhone the interaction with one of the officers who was searching and questioning them. And he said, you know, how is it that you can pull us over for just praying? And the cop said, well, based on the studies and classes I have plenty of reason to be suspicious. The think tank that I work for, called Political Research Associates, progressive think tank in the Boston area, undertook an examination of what kind of training law enforcement and intelligence professionals are getting that might lead them to the conclusion or the suggestion that mere praying might be something that's criminally suspicious. I have several copies of the report here and some. Could you guys open this thing? Just a little one. I have a few copies of the full report if you're interested. We did an analysis of several providers in the private sector who are marketing courses to police, intelligence professionals, under the guise of providing, training and readiness on how to confront terrorism. We found is they're actually teaching more of a counter-subversive theory. And what this report aims to do is sort of identify and name a new milieu, or the players, as it were, who are bridging the gap from many of the Islamophobic activists with whom you may be familiar, from Brigitte Gabriel's American Congress for Truth, and Pam Geller's organization, and Robert Spencer and Steve Emerson. The players identified in this report sort of form a bridge between that grouping and the blogosphere, which also supports them, jihadwatch.org, Front Page Magazine. We're seeing these same ideas being transmitted and interpreted for an audience of public servants, oftentimes paid for with our tax dollars. On the first page of the handout there, you have some of the names and the firms with which they've been associated that we identify. And it's by no means an exclusive list. So I think this is really the sort of the tip of the iceberg. And the players do constitute or seem to work in mutually enforcing informal network. You'll see speakers from one firm at different venues with speakers from another firm, or they'll be invited, to the conservative political action committee to do something alongside Robert Spencer and the like. We've identified some of the frames that are common, and I would like to stress that that we see a range. Some of the messaging is more subtle than the others. We sent investigators to 2 large industry conferences in the fall of 2010. We sent an investigator to the annual conference of the International Counterterrorism Officers Association, for instance. a conference that was advertised on a government website where law enforcement can go to get information about training opportunities. The ICTOA is based and was founded by a New York City police officer. On the first day of that conference, our investigator witnessed a former Muslim and a self-described former Islamic terrorist go on about a 6-hour rant describing vile acts of violence, rapes, beheadings, all in his work, in according to his presentation done in the name of Islam, where he described Islam as similar to Nazism or communism in its lust for global conquest. And Mr. Shubat has also is converted to an apocalyptic form of Christianity. If you search his name on YouTube, you see many videos entitled "Mark of the Beast," where he describes his theory that Islam is the Antichrist, which is very important in terms of Christian right beliefs about prophecies regarding the end times. So it's probably no surprise, it is very disturbing that someone like this would be invited to address intelligence analysts, police officers from intelligence units, the people who are now being hired to staff the new forms of the new domestic security apparatus. It was even more disturbing that we could register no dissent or shock in the audience from anything that Mr. Shubat said. When our investigator turned to ask a participant who had a badge signaling that she was with a Southern Nevada fusion center, said, "So, what exactly were you supposed to do about this?" And the woman said, "Well, you heard him. Kill them all." Because that was the impression that she was left with, that Islam itself is fundamentally flawed and inherently violent. Other speakers are far more careful, but no less dangerous in terms of jeopardizing fundamental freedoms and jeopardizing community safety. We also were not able to attend any courses by Washington-based Speakers Bureau we profile in this report called the CI Center, or Counterintelligence Center. This is the most establishment or mainstream body who teach about 8,000 federal employees, public employees a year. Certainly not all are taking their course on global jihadist threat doctrine, but there were several pages of feedback by participants in that course that do raise concerns that what is being taught in the course jeopardizes respect for constitutional rights. Some participants shared this course on global jihadist threat doctrine taught by CI Center has changed my views on the compatibility of Islam and democracy. Sharia law says they can't exist. I will be more vocal to prevent the passage of laws in America that effectively submit to Islam. Another writes, "Thank you for enlightening us about the hijacking of Middle Eastern programs at colleges and universities. This will make me think twice about the bias graduates of those programs bring to the job." While we're not able to sit in that classroom, we do have an idea about what is being taught. One of the professors, the faculty at CI Center, his name is Walid Fares. Fares is a Lebanese Christian who wrote a very popular book for the Republican caucus on terrorism. It's called Future Jihad. In Future Jihad, Mr. Fares describes a theory about internal subversion of America by alleged jihadists, wherein Saudi petrodollars fueled the establishment of Middle Eastern studies programs at major universities like Stanford, Yale.